They told me not to open drawer 14, so of course, that's where I started. There are 3 rules no one writes down when you work the night shift in a hospital morgue. First, always trust the refrigeration units more than you trust the power grid. Second, never let the smell get to you. It's not always coming from where you think. And third, if someone from the government delivers a corpse with no paperwork and tells you not to open it, they already know you're going to. It was just before midnight when I showed up for my shift, 2 minutes early like always. I'd been doing this job for 4 years, and in that time, I've learned to treat corpses better than most treat the living. The dead don't lie to you. They don't scream or sue. They just sit still, wait to be processed, and disappear into the cold. That night, though, the basement didn't feel right. You ever walk into a place and feel like it's listening? Like the walls themselves are holding their breath? That's what it felt like as I badge scanned into the elevator. The lights flickered twice on the way down. Not uncommon, but still, it made me wince. When the doors slid open to the morgue hallway, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No beeping, no overhead calls, not even the buzz of fluorescent lights. Just silence, thick and heavy. The morgue is tucked in the deepest part of the hospital. Down a hallway no one walks unless they have to. Gray tiles, white walls, 2 doors, one for staff, one for the refrigeration unit. Both were shut. Inside, the air was colder than usual. I clocked in on the wall terminal, screen glitching slightly, then turned to the log clipboard on the intake table. 2 names, routine transfers from ICU, natural causes. One was an old woman who died in her sleep. The other was a young man who flatlined post-surgery. Standard stuff. Then there was a 3rd entry, sort of. No name, no time of death. Just the words, transported by federal personnel, do not open. And next to that, in red marker, drawer 14. Now, this wasn't the first time someone's tried to play secrecy games with us. Usually it's a Jane Doe from a crash or some high-profile case. But this one, it came with no ID, no barcode, not even a toe tag. The gurney it arrived on was dented and wet. I remember that part because the floor beneath it was still slick with something sticky. I followed the trail to the refrigeration unit. Drawer 14 was sealed with red biohazard tape, not our hospital's tape. This was wider, with a government logo stamped across it. Something that looked like a V coiled around a serpent. I hadn't seen that before. I pressed my fingers to the drawer's face. Cold. Too cold. I backed off, finished processing the other 2 bodies first, logged them, bagged and labeled them, slid them into their assigned drawers. Everything done by the book. I even swept the floor and wiped down the autopsy tools just to give myself an excuse not to think about 14. But at exactly 2:17 a.m., the room shifted. I don't know how else to describe it. One moment I was finishing notes, and the next, it was like the oxygen changed. Heavier, tighter. The air tasted metallic, like licking a 9-volt battery. I turned back toward drawer 14. Still sealed, still silent, but I could feel it. The same way you feel someone watching you when your back is turned. Like heat on the back of your neck. My curiosity snapped. I walked over, peeled the red tape off, The seal hissed softly like pressure being released. I took a breath, gloved up, and pulled the tray out. The body bag inside looked standard, thick vinyl, zipper up the middle, but the edges were wet, not soaked, just sweating, like it had been sitting in a sauna, and it was moving, just slightly. A twitch here, a shift there, not like breathing, more like muscle memory, nerves firing in sleep. I told myself it was rigor mortis, residual electrical impulses. I've seen bodies jerk before. I've even had one sit up on the table post-death. It's rare, but not impossible. Still, this felt different. I looked closer. That's when I noticed the bite marks. Both arms had them, upper forearms, deep, wide, circular lacerations that had been stitched shut with thick, clumsy sutures, like someone had been in a rush. No anesthesia, no sterilization, just brute force. The wounds were still oozing. That's when the overhead lights flickered. First the one above me, then the row leading back toward the hallway, one by one. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Then came the sound. It wasn't a groan or a growl. It was a breath, a slow inhale, just one. From inside the bag, my stomach dropped. My hands pulled back without thinking. The zipper was still closed, but the vinyl moved, like something underneath had expanded. Then the eye opened. I only caught it for a second, just a slit where the bag had curled open. But the eye inside was cloudy and yellow, with a tiny red vein threading through the center like a spider web. It blinked. Once, slowly. I slammed the tray shut so hard the other drawers rattled, locked the latch, stepped back, heart hammering. I ran to the intercom and hit the emergency line. Static, then a click, then a voice. Lockdown initiated. All personnel remain in station. Containment level 3 active. Level 3? That wasn't our system. Behind me, the drawer began to rattle. Not violently, just enough to let me know. Whatever was in there, it was still awake. I didn't know what to do. Do I leave? Do I call security again? Do I even open the door? Every emergency protocol I knew told me to evacuate, but every instinct screamed, if you open that hallway door, it'll get out. And that's when I heard it. From inside the refrigeration unit, a voice rasped. David. That's my name. I've worked the morgue for 4 years. The dead don't talk. But that night, something in drawer 14 did. The whisper was too clear to be a fluke, not an air vent, not a failing compressor. David. I froze, hands braced against the edge of the sink, blood still pounding in my ears. My mind scrambled for rational explanations. Auditory hallucination from stress, subconscious projection. Maybe the intercom glitched and played something from earlier. But no one had said my name over the intercom, and no corpse should have had a tongue that worked. Drawer 14 was silent again. No rattling, no breath. Just the cold chrome front and that ridiculous red security tape crumpled on the floor. I stared at it for a full minute without moving. Then the lights above me blinked again. 2 quick flashes and then a total blackout. Silence. Total darkness. I stood motionless, listening to my own breath fog the air. Somewhere to my right, a refrigeration unit let out a long mechanical sigh. The backup lights kicked on 3 seconds later, flooding the room with dim red glow, enough to see shapes, not details. I checked the control terminal, still on, still glitching. A red banner across the screen now read, "Containment in progress. Do not attempt exit. Door locked. Level 3 lockdown." The system had overridden my access. I wasn't locked in a room anymore. I was locked inside a quarantine. I moved slowly back toward the refrigeration wall, toward drawer 14. The whisper hadn't repeated, but my name still hung in the air like it had been nailed there. I told myself I had to confirm, check vitals, run a scanner, get proof that this wasn't something breaking in my brain. I reached for the roll-in vitals card we keep against the wall, monitor, defibrillator, oximeter, and wheeled it over to the body drawer. Each squeaky wheel sounded like a fire alarm in the quiet. When I slid the tray out again, the body bag hadn't moved. Still zipped, still sweating. I pressed the pulse oximeter against the corpse's cold finger. The monitor blinked once, then again. O2 saturation, 5%. Pulse, 9 beats per minute. I yanked the cord out of the wall so fast, the machine toppled sideways. 5% blood oxygen saturation in a corpse would be impossible. 9 beats per minute? That was not death. That was hibernation. A loud knock echoed through the hallway outside the morgue. Not a security knock, not a polite one. 3 fists. Repeated. Panicked. Someone was out there. I sprinted to the small viewing panel set into the steel door and looked through. Just a narrow strip of reinforced glass like a submarine porthole. Through it, I saw a man in a bloodied lab coat, hospital badge still clipped to his chest, slamming his fists into the hallway wall and screaming something I couldn't hear. His eyes were wide with panic. He turned, looking behind him, and that's when I saw them. 3 people. No. Not people. Not anymore. They were walking wrong. Stiff movements. Limbs hanging too loose or held too tight. One was dragging a broken leg. Another's mouth hung open, slack-jawed, revealing shattered teeth and blackened gums. One of them lunged. The man screamed and ran, disappearing down the hallway. The others followed. I stepped back from the window, heart hammering in my chest. I could still feel the vibrations in the floor. That hadn't been a random attack. That man had come to this hallway, to this door. He knew this room was sealed, which meant whatever was happening out there was already everywhere else. I turned off the autopsy lights. Every lumen felt like a flare in the darkness. Drawer 14 was still pulled out. I walked over to zip the bag closed, if only to stop the stink from spreading. But I noticed something new. The sutures on the corpse's arm were gone. Not torn, not cut, just undone. Threads lying beside the body like they'd been picked loose carefully. One by one, the bite wound beneath had changed. It wasn't swollen anymore. The skin around it looked tighter, firmer, like it was healing. That's when I realized the breathing hadn't stopped. It was just quieter now, slower, rhythmic, not panicked, not struggling, prepared. I backed away from the drawer again and nearly tripped over the knocked-over vitals cart. I dropped to one knee to steady it, and that's when I heard the scratching, software deliberate, from deeper inside the refrigeration unit, not from 14, from somewhere further down. I turned and looked at the wall of drawers. Drawer 10, drawer 8, drawer 3. Each one gave off a soft metallic creak, like pressure shifting inside. Then I saw it. Drawer 9 slid open a full inch, all on its own. I didn't scream. I backed slowly toward the rear of the morgue where the emergency elevator door sat locked and dark. I stared at the drawers, all of them, watching, waiting, and as I pressed my back to the cold tile wall, I whispered to myself, "They told me not to open drawer 14. But no one warned me about the other fucking doors." The drawer wouldn't close. Drawer 9 opened just far enough to reveal the corner of a body bag, grayish fabric, zipped halfway. The air leaking from it was foul, warm, like rot inside a sealed can. I pressed both hands to the drawer and tried forcing it shut. Nothing. It was stuck on something. Then I saw fingers. Black, cracked fingernails curled around the edge of the tray. Inside, a hand was braced against the inner wall, keeping it open, and then it pushed back. I stumbled away just as the drawer slid open another 6 inches on its own. One pale leg dropped over the side and hung there like dead weight, except it wasn't. The toes twitched. Behind me, drawer 14 crashed open. The metal slammed so hard into the wall I thought the bolts had snapped. The body bag, once still, was now heaving. Something inside it twisted against the fabric, stretching the zipper. I didn't wait. I sprinted for the emergency panel beside the elevator. Lockdown override. Denied. I slammed my fist into the metal. Again. Behind me, the morgue lit up with the sound of drawers sliding. 1, 2, 5, 12, 13. Metal groaned. Runners screeched. Some opened slow, others all at once. Body bags fell. Some burst. One corpse hit the tile with a wet smack, and all of them were moving. There were at least 9 of them. Most were still tangled in their body bags, arms lashing, legs kicking, jaws snapping at the air. But they were waking fast, faster than anything I'd ever imagined. Some had eyes still sealed shut by autopsy gel. Some had gaping chest cavities, no heart, no lungs, and still they moved. One dropped off a tray, like a pile of meat, and stood back up before its knees finished buckling. I grabbed a bone saw off the tool rack. No time for gloves, no time for a plan, just something sharp and heavy. That's when drawer 14's occupant stood up. It didn't lurch, didn't stagger. It stood like it had just gotten out of bed, deliberate, straight-backed, head cocked slightly like it remembered how to move. Its eyes locked on mine. It smiled. The lights failed again. Red emergency backup kicked in. This time they stayed on, but dimmer, flickering. The corpse from drawer 14 walked directly toward me, barefoot, arms low and relaxed, until it reached the center of the room. Then it screamed, a sound like hot metal on bone, a shriek that made the others move. Every corpse in the room turned at once toward me. I ran. The service corridor was narrow, a dead end unless I could reach the incinerator controls. I ducked under a hanging fluorescent fixture and yanked open the maintenance closet, crawling over tubs of bleach, ammonia, body bags. I slammed the door shut and killed my breathing. Footsteps, not dragging, running. The thing that used to be in drawer 14 sprinted past the door. So did two more, and then I heard a bang. One of them was clawing at the closet door. The lock gave out. The door exploded inward, slamming into my shoulder. I fell backward, cracked my elbow against the mop sink. The first one through was smaller, maybe 5 feet 5 inches, partially decomposed, face torn open by what looked like surgical trauma. I kicked it in the chest. It didn't even stumble. It lunged, mouth wide, and I swung the bone saw straight across its jaw. Teeth scattered. Blood hit the wall, but it kept coming, now gnawing on my forearm brace. I shoved it back, slammed the saw down into its shoulder, and didn't wait to see if it stuck. I ran for the incinerator. The crematory room stank of formaldehyde and hot oil. The fire was already running. Someone must have started a cycle before the lockdown. I heard bodies slamming into the walls behind me. Some were screaming. Others just gurgled. The first of them came through the door. Drawer 14's corpse, shirtless now. Its chest was marked with that same ViraClean serpent insignia, branded into the flesh, not tattooed. Something experimental, something made. It stopped a few feet away. Behind it, more were crawling in. 9, 10, 12, maybe more. All moving like a pack, unified. I did the only thing I could. I turned on the emergency gas purge and hit the ignition override. A burst of flame erupted from the cremator mouth. Most flinched, not him. Drawer 14 just walked into it. He didn't scream. The others followed. Some fell, some burned, some retreated. I ran, slipped on something wet, caught myself on a tray rail. Smoke filled the hallway behind me. The alarm finally tripped.
Emergency override enabled. Elevator releasing.
I don't remember sprinting across the hall. I don't remember hitting the elevator button. I just remember the doors sliding open and seeing the first one that had gotten out. Not from the morgue. From upstairs. A nurse, her neck torn wide, holding a scalpel in one hand, chewing the flesh from her other. She stared at me and smiled. Location: ViraClean Containment Oversight Hub 6. Subject: Test Site, St. Luke's Hospital, lower sub-level. The monitor flickered once, then stabilized. Camera 14B. Morgue corridor. Static hissed as the feed sharpened. The technician was still alive. Somehow. He limped across the frame, soaked in blood, eyes wide, jaw clenched. A bone saw dangled from one trembling hand. The other arm hung useless, the bone exposed beneath strips of muscle and shredded sleeve. Behind him, the undead closed in, not staggering, not clumsy, coordinated. They moved as one, surgical, precise. Dr. Marion Rusk adjusted her glasses and typed a note into the terminal. Subject number 72 sustained longer than expected exposure. Mental coherence intact at 63 minutes, post-breach phase. Behavioral deviation from prior trials. Subject initiated direct resistance rather than flight. Noted. She tapped the keys without looking at the screen. The technician slipped, fell, tried to crawl. One of the infected lunged. The one tagged drawer 14. The first, the prototype. It straddled the technician, leaned in, and bit into the face, just below the cheekbone. The technician screamed once, then again and again, as teeth shredded down to cartilage, hands flailed, kicked, clawed. Another infected tore open his abdomen. Another dug fingers into his throat. One gripped his tongue and ripped it free. The camera lens fogged from blood spray. Dr. Rusk paused the feed. She stood, crossed the room, picked up the red phone on the wall, and dialed. Trial site 03 confirmed successful. She glanced back at the screen. Subject reacted with moderate resistance. Infection synchronized across 8 hosts. Control specimen exhibited leadership behavior. We're ready to scale. Yes, sir. Maine is next. She hung up the phone and resumed typing. The screen looped. The technician's hand twitched. One final time.